Bitcoin is too big to rig, apparently.
Too big to rig?
Too big to rig, Bitcoin. That's how it feels lately.
Does it? I don't know, man.
Well, it bumped nicely when that happened. So election night, as the results are coming in, and it's still feeling maybe early on what's happening, but you could sense a Trump win. Initially, it was like, yeah, okay, only 40, 50% in, but
he's shellacking
trending.
Yeah.
And the Bitcoin price just went whoop, quickly. And I had this funny feeling that it was like I was sharing this catharsis that the entire nation was feeling about the election, where price goes up, and I'm like, yes, it's validation of like about time for something to happen.
Yeah.
And as you're trying to stack where you can, it's like, no. So the entire nation, if you're paying attention, was either going like, yes, or no.
Yeah.
And I felt both at the same time on the Bitcoin price.
I, however, did not. I just went, oh, good. Oh, good. I actually breathed a sigh of relief when I saw that Trump had won. It was such a
release of pressure.
Yeah, I was just like, thank God. Like, and again, and I think I've said this multiple times, if you had said that to me 5 years ago, someday you're going to be rooting hard for Trump, I'd be like, no, zero chance, dude. That guy's a clown. He's a buffoon. And yet, as I reflect on that guy's he's just a remarkable human being. Like, there's no other way to look at it.
Pretty crazy.
It was easy for me to write him off because he was sort of a blowhard, and he kind of seemed like a bully, and he's just a reality TV star, and his dad helped him, and yada, all that kind of stuff. And yet,
a showman, like
a showman.
He's always putting on a show. Politically, the results were chaotic,
right?
And you're like, is this okay? I don't believe it's 4D chess. I think it could be desperate, but with a good show. Yeah. And so I was always like, I don't know. And then some of placements he had in his cabinet, and it was some of the same corporate lobbyist folks, and it was like, or Bolton for who was it? The diplomat of the nation. Like Bolton. Oh my goodness. So I was feeling horrible about some of that, but then again,
but that's what I'm getting at is like I look at the guy over the last 5 or 6 years, and he's been through hell and back. I mean, like, quite literally.
And
his family, everybody. I mean, the amount of garbage that got thrown at that guy from the lawfare and the lawsuits and the criminal trial and all that kind of stuff, like, they were just piling nonsense after nonsense after nonsense on top of this guy's head. And then he got shot at twice. He got hit once. I mean, he escaped with his life just by a fluke of a head turn. Like, literally, his brainstem was almost all over national television.
You can't ignore the miracle of that. And, yeah, it sets you back like, oh, shit.
Wow.
Wow.
But that guy persevered through all that like it was nothing.
Right.
Like, you can say he's a showman. I go, yeah, but...
A lot of showmen, as soon as
shit gets real, those guys...
Yeah, he's resilient.
Oh my God.
He may be crazy, but he's consistently
I don't know, man.
He shows up.
Like
what I like about it this round is first time around as a new guy on the scene, and you don't know who his team is really. It's like all you know is like, well, Trump. And then Pence, it was kind of like, I don't know. Yeah. Now he's got that Avenger Drain the Swamp team.
Yeah.
That for me is like a gestalt, like more than the sum of his parts.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
Okay, yes, there's Trump, but he's backed by key players from a wide spectrum, and they are categorically, uniquely each like their own genius.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was just like I was imagining Vivek Ramaswamy being the press secretary person.
Oh God.
Can you imagine the slaughter and not backing away or the endless lies we're used to?
Yeah.
It's more just like, let's talk about that.
Right.
And he would just
hammer people,
win them over or beat them down and be like, are we done yet?
Yeah.
Moving on.
Right. Yeah.
And they'd be like, I guess that's done.
Yeah.
Like moving on. It would be amazing.
Yeah, but they got Robert Kennedy in there. Awesome. They're gonna have Elon Musk in there cleaning stuff up. It's funny. He talks about his little Doge office,
Right.
and
Doge, it's
the thing that I don't think, I mean, it's one thing to walk into a private enterprise and start cleaning house. That's relatively easy. You just go in and start slaughtering people, right? Walking into the government, a whole different kind of bees, man. Like that.
try trimming or cutting hard these deep established things that people also like expect and demand. Even if they vote to shrink government, they want their benefits,
Right.
or whatever they get, they don't even know where it comes from.
Right.
So it's like, cut it all, and then it's like, wait, no, but we want all the stuff.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a doozy. If he can trim 500 billion out of the budget, I'd be surprised. But he's saying 2 trillion. I go, good luck with that. I mean, maybe he's a pretty remarkable man as well. So
I've heard some, I don't know what I feel about it. I want a well, tightly managed government that doesn't just feel like, well, we need a bigger budget, or let's just spend to have the same budget, and grow harder. I go from feeling like it's sort of impossibly hard and you really shouldn't mess with that too much, to it is so far gone beyond bad. Like Vivek months ago, well, he was campaigning, I think, in the primaries, and Vivek at one point was asked, like, how would you cut government? Like, that's hard, it's big, it's complicated. And he's like, or how would you do it fairly? Who do you pick? You're going to have lawsuits, all this stuff. Yeah. And he goes, everyone whose social security number ends in an odd number is cut. How about that? Let's do that. That would be like, okay, everything is cut in half. There's chaos and turmoil, and you figure it out. And then that is a process you go through for a while. But does that wreck it, or does government somehow survive as it does? I don't know.
Well, the thing is all that it's going to spawn is legal challenges, right? Like everything they want to do, there's going to be mountains of legal challenges, and they're not going to win all of them. There's going to be a lot of them where they're going to lose. They're not going to be able to do what they want to do,
or they'd be tied up.
They're going to be hamstrung for years, and the longer it takes to do that, the more backlash you're going to face from the people, because it gives their opponents more time to talk about all the horrible things that are going to happen to you when this thing finally goes through, right? So, I mean, it's a monumental task, but there are some things that you could get rid of pretty easily, like Department of Education. You
mentioned that.
What does that do for us? Mm-hmm. Well, they're managing a bunch of loans, right? So they got the big gaping loan problem that's going to be looming over the next administration. And, when the 50% of those loans default, because that's where they're headed, then, that becomes its own catastrophic problem that they're going to have to figure out how to navigate. And then you've got all the political backlash against that. Whatever solution you come up with, someone's going to be pissed about it, right? Someone's going to say, well, that's not fair to this person, that's not fair to I mean, it's just never ending. So smashing the state is a tough business.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm all for education and investing in the root, future investment in our kids, and just I think education is key. And so it's like one of the most important things in a culture is like quality education. And you see the expenses go up and up and up and up, and qualities go down and down and down.
Yeah, that's life in the fiat world, dude.
Doing? Yeah.
But that's all things fiat.
Yeah,
everything, the quality goes down and the price goes up. That's what happens in a fiat world. So, that's why we Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right?
A Bitcoin education standard.
Yeah.
They talked about one thing thrown out there amongst various random stuff being thrown is like moving the EPA from Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah, getting all of them out of Washington.
Where, like Wyoming?
Yeah.
Colorado or Wyoming or something. Just like as a businessman, I could see like, here's this department that does stuff we don't want to just get rid of.
Right.
But it's so entrenched and messed up. Let's just move the headquarters to
Duluth,
a red state somewhere in the middle of where there's like resources and interest and plenty to do, however it's managed as a bureaucracy. Anyway, throw it in Wyoming. That alone could really just shake up like who you got and where they are and why they're there.
Right.
And it would create this pressure to, well, you want to keep your job or the jobs you're doing, it's localized in a different way.
Yeah.
And it would just shake it up without necessarily having to get rid of services. But man, you're going to have a lot of new people, a different mindset, and a great reset of, okay, what are we doing again?
Yeah.
Let's get back to starting again. Same, but all different.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be nice. I'm anxious to see what they do. I mean, the bigger thing is like if he cleans up the sort of the deep state problem, then because he just posted a video or somebody posted a video of Donald Trump talking. I reposted it on Twitter, but he was just up there going, yeah, I'm going to carve into all these FBI, all the three-letter agencies.
Like 10 things.
Yeah, that he was just going to start hammering on. But most of it was around censorship, right, which is huge. And that, and if you think about how long we've been self-censoring since the 80s, and they started with the PC culture that's now morphed into this fucking woke whatever bullshit, that's been that steady erosion of your ability to think and speak.
The best kind of censorship a dictatorship could have is where the people
censor
themselves because whether they're afraid or they just know you culturally you fit in.
Right.
Like what are you saying? Why are you disagreeing so hard?
Right. Yeah. And it taps into some very primal sort of instincts that humans have about not standing out and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's why there's such a small percentage of people that rail against it, and so many people that are just they wind up they're like the frog in the boiling pot. They just end up boiling, and they just go, "Oh wow, things got really bad. I didn't even do you see that coming?" I go, "Yeah, because you're a fucking frog in a pot, you dumbass." Like.
Maybe being eaten as a boiled frog isn't that bad.
Yeah.
Like, just take me.
Yeah.
Take care of me. Big state. Take care of me.
Well, I mean, there's also the competency issue, right? But I mean, there's just a lot of people that aren't competent to survive in this world as it's configured, right? I mean, there's a reason why we have all these like bullshit jobs and keeping a lot of people that are otherwise basically useless going. Because that's sort of the society we built, right?
Yeah, the mindset. So I think there's a mindset shift, and it was a confirmation as well that legacy media so it's one thing to have a podcast where here and there you have real important guests where you deep dive on it and it gets 100 million views.
Right.
Versus every day, all day, 10 channels repeating the same mantra of bullshit, trying their hardest at every level they can, losing.
Yeah.
It's a media information absorption shift, I think, that's happened.
Oh yeah. Well, those guys are done.
They're cooked.
They've been done since the internet. They just haven't realized it yet.
Yeah.
And everything they've done is to try and corral that and corner what's left of their share. But every single legacy institution that gets confronted by change does the same thing. And I probably said this before, but back in the day, I would talk to my friends that worked at like Disney Home Entertainment. I had a couple friends that worked for Disney Home Entertainment. I had a friend that worked for Warner Music, and I was looking at those guys going, you realize you're going to be out of a job like within 5 years. Like, oh, the internet's never going to, they'll never figure out, they'll never. And then you watch them, it's like, I remember at the height of my friend's gig at Disney, he said, yeah, Disney is the number one revenue, Disney Home Entertainment, DVD sales, VHS sales, crap like that. Number one revenue generator at Disney. Today, it's like number 19 or something. I mean, it's so far down the list, it's like below their theme parks, right? Because that whole model just got destroyed. Because the whole model was based on they control production and distribution. And when you control all production and all distribution, and it's financially prohibitive to enter those arenas, you can't compete, right? Unless you're a legacy player. But the internet broke that, like Michael Saylor said, that they dematerialized books, music, movies, television shows, all of it. It all became dematerialized and beamed right into your brain, basically.
Yeah, and it forces them all to reconcile with reality. Reality being connected quite tightly with their market and their customers and the demand. They can't just say, no, this is the trough you feed out of.
Right.
This is it.
Yeah.
People are like, no, there's other places I get whatever I want from, so
Yeah.
I don't need your subscription, or I don't need you. We see, people canceling their subscriptions, and even if you have leadership in a company, the CEO or the board or whoever, and they're like ideologues or they're woke or liberal or whatever, if they want to survive, they're not that stupid. And so
Right.
you see companies dropping their DEI stuff. You're going to see companies quietly or maybe overtly, who knows, but they'll probably all try to, as cool as they can, just make a shift for what people actually want.
Yeah.
And will pay attention to, instead of just saying, no, we're Netflix.
Right.
You get more of what we think, and nobody watches it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they have to grip reality, I think. They can't ignore it and be like the same old legacy, whatever.
Well, there's a great example in a studio called Fox Searchlight.
Mm.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Fox Searchlight brand, but like Fox Media is broken up into tons and tons of little companies, right?
Flavors of
different
genres or
of things, everything, whether it's sports, news, movies, home entertainment, all that stuff. They're all different little silos. Fox Searchlight has been really, really well known for producing really high quality content that people really like on a relatively low budget. I mean, these are sort of thoughtful movies that do pretty okay. They're not blockbusters. They're never going to be a summer tent pole. They're never going to do anything like that. But they've sort of mastered that art of creating content that resonates with people, that people like, right? And they're relatively simple stories. There's no special effects. There's no costumes. There's no, it's like talking heads and people going through life dramas and shit like that. Bridges in Madison County kind of shit like that, right? Mm. The thing is, there's a whole cadre of like video game companies that do the same thing. Like, they're really good. They don't pump out the next Call of Duty 14 or whatever it is. They don't have the next big blockbuster tentpole title that they spent $300 million developing, and they need to sell 300 million copies to make their money back and all that kind of shit. But that's the same thing that big studios are doing. But there's these companies that come out and they just make good playable games that people really enjoy, and they make a little money off of them, and they move on and they make another one, and they've kind of got that formula down. And I think it's companies like that are going to be really well positioned to thrive in what's coming, right? Like, as all these forces realign, it's going to start highlighting legitimately the meritocracy of entertainment and
That's
the meritocracy
meritocracy.
Right. And it's not going to be about how big is your ad budget. It's going to be about how well do you resonate with people? How well can you tap into what people actually want, care about, things like that. Mm-hmm. And you see it already. I mean, you can see it on Twitter. You can see like how Tucker's views are just, through the roof. You can see it, how a lot of these independent media sources are just blowing those other sources out of the water because they are delivering content that people are interested in, care about, and want to see.
Yeah.
And, but I think that's going to be true throughout the entire economy. It's not just going to be like entertainment. I think that's the most visible thing. But I think the stuff we're going to start seeing trickles down to everything we buy, everything we own, everything we value.
Yeah.
Because of Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. People's, especially the new young generations, that's how they think. They're connected. They're seeking. They're looking. They're open. When they find it, they stick to it. When they're kind of tired and done, they're willing to move on. They're not like, well, no. I always watch Walter Cronkite. Or if only we had Walter Cronkite. It's like, that's all gone.
Right.
Seek it out every day. And kids do that naturally. And I think when it comes to money, I think it's particularly with young thinking type folks, flexibility of mind. People are, if you're paying attention at all, it's harder and harder to ignore, and you're going to be more willing to, like, why do I just keep hanging my hat on that hook? Like, it's way over there, or it's farther away.
Right.
Like, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I mean, I think we're about to enter a golden age. I really do. And it's going to be such a remarkable transformation. I'm really excited for the future. I'm especially excited for the future right now because we've managed to elect an administration that I am fairly confident is going to steer us away from World War III, which is huge. And, for all the little war hawks and the wannabe war hawks, the people that don't actually fight but are really pro whatever war they're pro. I say good riddance to them. Like those people. People signing bombs going to Ukraine and shit like that. Like that is so tasteless.
Yeah, warmongering. People are so tired of the warmongering. Like, really, what are we? It's less and less clear at all, if it ever was, that like what is this for? Who follow the money?
Yeah.
And so, okay, warmongering gone. Please, thank you. My only concern might be that a lot of the subject matter experts out there are tied in with big corporate interests, revolving door with lobbying, and they're just sort of connected there, but they're not maybe on the wrong side of Trump's politics, and they are really skilled, but then they fall into some of that swamp.
Yeah.
It's a risk, like, more corporate sort of just who knows what, like RFK. Like, will RFK be put really in charge, or is it going to be another corporate person with RFK kind of nipping at his heels all the time? But it's like, I don't know. I hope the right people are really in charge.
Me too.
So,
and that's but bare minimum, what I can say is like Trump's diplomacy style, regardless if you like it or hate it or whatever, it produces peaceful outcomes, and that's what we're really looking for. Like warfare in general is always destructive, and it's just like what I would say about fist fighting. Like you can never win a fight. Like nobody can ever win a fight. You can only lose less. And people really struggle, I find, to wrap their heads around that idea that anytime you engage in combat, you are losing something. You're going to lose part of your humanity. You're going to lose part of your cells. You're going to get injured. Bad things are going to happen, right? And so the best possible outcome for you as a combatant is to lose less than the other guy. But it's always lose-lose, And there are people that come away and sort of glorify the idea of winning those things, but nobody wins. Like, you can't,
We're America, damn it. We win.
Well,
we just win.
We've lost everything since World War II, so.
Right. Yeah, I felt this refreshing sense. So at first it was kind of like this pressure release, like, okay, well, I feel more secure about the fact that elections occur without a lot of befuddled, inaudible bullshit or overt questions of like, really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you can't claim, well, but the popular vote, but the Senate is Republican too.
Yeah.
And probably the House, and then maybe another Supreme Court justice or
two,
whatever.
Yeah.
All that is over. So, okay. It didn't quite sink in for me for a little while, but I think what helps is the fact that like we have not had a president, and I don't know how long, really. Like, we haven't like had a president that seems functional.
Right.
We've had a joyous campaigner and a guy that is
Tampon Tim.
Kind of.
I love that name so much. I don't know who came up with that, but it's hilarious.
Yeah. So without all that overt apparent leadership going on, Trump can just start acting presidential, make his 10 points, start making plans, be as public and open about everything as he could be. And that's sort of like what's happening now.
Yeah.
And you've got various countries or meetings with Zelensky, China reaching out, the Houthis being like, we're actually done now.
Yeah.
It just is already happening on its own.
Right.
And Trump's not like in there doing anything. It's just like everyone knows what's coming.
Yeah.
Like the gig is up.
Right.
So,
and I think he's a revitalized person. I think his first time through, I don't think he realized the depth of the corruption. I think he was very naive to the whole process, and I think he got tangled up in it pretty good. I mean, your
first rodeo too, you're just like, okay, whack-a-mole, like this, that, and you're sorting it all out.
Right.
He's going into it knowing what's coming.
Yeah, he knows the game this time, right? And I think that's visible in his cabinet, or at least what looks like is going to be his cabinet. And even that lady he hired for his chief of staff, she seems pretty impressive.
So she's one that's like Kellogg, and there's a bunch of like kind of food related type
Stuff.
that for me it was like fiat food. But
Right.
then again, if you're anywhere in position of power in America,
You're
doing that
something.
stuff,
Right.
you're fiat something.
Yeah.
So okay, she strikes me as overtly fiat, but then I don't know anything about her. So,
Well, they're still all fiat people, right? I mean,
Yeah.
for the most part, like
well, the
they're
Liberty coin, and still some of that's kind of like, okay, well, you got to
Well,
give
I mean,
over this.
shit coinery too. But yeah, I mean, the guy, for all his virtues, still has his ding dong faults. Like, he's very money motivated and he's very fiat motivated. So I
And the
don't know.
paths lead to Bitcoin anyway. So
Right.
hey, if we're not anti-crypto, well, then you're making open paths for effectively, eventually, Bitcoin. Now, the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve thing, Cynthia Loomis recently again was,
Promoting
still
it.
talking about it, promoting it, saying, hey, this is going to be happening. I'm excited about it. I also try to get my mind around how really does what the government presume to buy say they wanted to buy 1 million Bitcoin.
Yeah.
How in the hell do they afford that with the other promises and all that? I've heard things, everything from, hey, it may start this spin and rinse and repeat cycle for Bitcoin that fiat fails harder, more quickly. Everybody sees it more. Maybe it pushes a shift there that they didn't even expect necessarily. Or it's not really possible because who's going to bless you with that money but the Fed?
Right.
You can't fire Jerome, maybe. Maybe you could with a majority in.
Well, they could just disband the Fed.
So basically, you're pushing. I think what you might start with is the idea of it's just a Bitcoin strategic reserve, like we have a cheese reserve. Oh, you're going toe to toe with the Fed. So when the Fed like says no or okay, sure, and no, I don't know where that ends other than a serious big banker fight.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, the Federal Reserve is. It's like what did Cersei say in Game of Thrones? Like, if the men with swords wield all the power, and how come I'm in control, kind of thing. Right?
Oh, right.
And the Federal Reserve enjoys paper authority. Period. Like, they don't have an army. They don't have anything. They have paper, and they are protected by paper. And that paper can go away just overnight. Like, it doesn't take anything.
So say the U.S. government itself was hell bent on buying Bitcoin, and the Fed isn't going to issue the paper. Does the U.S. Treasury have what backing what to be able to buy?
They have taxing authority, but I mean, it's all circular, sort of. The Fed prints and the Treasury issues, and the Fed prints and the Treasury issues, and I don't think there would be any barrier to them coming up with the money. I think the bigger barrier would be trying to acquire that size of a stack, right? Like, without grotesquely distorting markets, So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much merit there is to the idea of a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve. I don't know if that'll ever gain any traction. I think we need to get a lot more understanding about Bitcoin before that Overton window slides over that spot as being reasonable. But I don't know, man. I mean, you never know. Weird shit has happened in our lifetime, so we've been through some pretty weird shit.
Yeah. Well, when we think about Bitcoin breaking all models, even as there are plans in place that we can read a bill that says we're going to do this in this way, how that occurs, it's like, for me, it breaks all previous models on how that happens or what that would result in.
Yeah.
I'm trying to imagine America trying to be, say, first to start doing this, other nations seeing that and maybe doing it as well.
Well, we're already at best third, right?
Yeah, so I mean, other countries are in.
But you got Bhutan's got a huge stack.
Yeah.
El Salvador's got a huge stack.
These little nations that are way ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And Bhutan, very quietly.
Yeah.
El Salvador, like, here we are, and then like, ignore them.
Yeah. Don't look at that.
And,
whatever you do. Yeah.
So just say it's a handful of other nations, or just a couple of big ones that start saying it, or showing for it, striking off a kind of a, if you call it a race, OTC holdings, I imagine, just get hit. And how do you not affect the spot price? I mean,
the OTC price will start mooning, right? But the thing is, spot is driven by retail. OTC is driven by institutions and big players, right? So, whatever.
You can't buy that much Bitcoin quietly. It's like
super hard to
boom.
do. Yeah. But I mean, in terms of a Bitcoin strategic reserve, like they could just set up, like instead of Fort Knox, you got Fort Bitcoin Mine, and they could just start mining.
Mining would be a route.
And that not only would that help with network centralization, like right now, it is possible to 51% attack the network right now because of the mining concentration. And I think that's a really underappreciated risk to Bitcoin right now.
Odell has, in Truth for the Commoner, mentioned this a number of times, where it's like, look at the pools and how the blocks are made as templates between Foundry and Antminer and these others, and they're largely like Chinese.
Right.
They cooperate.
Yeah.
They could decide, hey, no, we're going to take control more here if we want.
Well, right now, there's not sufficient hash in China to do that, right? Even with all those pools combined, there's still not sufficient hash to 51% attack the network. But if you add the US mining consortiums, all of a sudden you've got close to 2/3 of hash. And, the FutureBit guys, which I'm a big fan of, by the way, you should go get yourself a FutureBit miner. Apollo 2, they're awesome. And I'm not paid to say that. I'm a user. But everybody should be mining. I mean,
play that lottery.
Play the lottery. And FutureBit had a great post, I think it was back just like late October, just a couple weeks ago. Because they're constructing their own blocks. Like if you get a FutureBit miner and you point it to your own node and you have your own wallet address, you can construct your own block from your own template, right?
Yeah.
And they had a FutureBit miner hit a block. And that's a big deal because that's how Bitcoin mining used to be, right? Like back in the day, if you wanted to mine Bitcoin, you constructed your own blocks, and there were thousands of people constructing blocks and adding to the blockchain and contributing to that decentralized mining. And now with the sort of economic allure of, well, we should concentrate these resources so we can get more money, we're losing a fundamental property of Bitcoin. And if we don't do something about it as Bitcoiners, we will lose one of the most valuable things that humanity has ever created. So when I tell people, like, I think you should be mining, it's not like, oh yeah, we'll play a lottery, maybe you'll get lucky, maybe. It's like, you have a fundamental duty to the network, especially if you call yourself a hardcore Bitcoin maxi and all this kind of stuff. If you're not mining, you're a joke as far as I'm concerned. Like, I don't care how big your fucking stack is. I'd rather see someone with 0.05 Bitcoin running 10 BitAxes or 5 FutureBit machines or whatever. There's hundreds of little miners you can get now. If you're not contributing to the mining hash, you're not really a Bitcoiner as far as I'm concerned.
And if you just say you want a little, maybe break-even return, and you point it at Ocean Pool or something, you don't have to feel like, okay, yes, you're contributing, but just for what? A bit of an electric bill, and for the lottery. Well, you could point it at like Ocean's Pool. They hit blocks periodically, and so. But
I mean, like that, even that, like, I think it is incredibly important for individual miners to be out there continually constructing blocks themselves, not contributing to a pool, because when you pool those resources, you cut down, you massively centralize things, right? And those pool operators, I mean, like even Ocean could come along and start constructing templates that censor transactions, right?
Well, they're censoring now. It's just what you believe is quality censorship, I guess.
Right. So I think it's imperative that that network remain censorship resistant as much as possible. So, for I think a bitaxe costs $500, and you'll get like I can't remember a few terahash out of it or something like that. Point a terahash of it's going to cost you like $5 a month on electricity or something. It's nothing. But the effect you would have if you can get 1,000,000 Bitcoiners pointing 1 terahash each, you start shifting that narrative around. It makes it harder and harder and harder. If you get 10 million Bitcoiners pointing a terahash each, all of a sudden you've got something pretty significant. But you've got decentralized mining. It's cool to run a node. Far too few people run nodes, and even far fewer people run mines. Like, it is absolutely imperative that people get on board with that.
Yeah, and like for me years ago too, as I'm learning about Bitcoin, just the idea that I could run a node. That's like on a PC with a little bit of hard drive space. I could just run a node. And then I found that quite easy.
Yeah.
And then in my head, it was this little shift like, I'm running Bitcoin. Right. And it was like nothing burger. Yeah. So then to run that on a Linux little Raspberry Pi deal, standalone and, not Windows upgrade fuckery, right. Just will never shut down.
Yeah.
And that was another little step of, I can run a number of nodes. In fact, running Tor and Lightning and all this stuff, and some work involved, but I felt invested, and I'd learned in the process, and it orange pilled me harder. Not that it functionally was all like I don't need it or use it that much,
right?
Although it's an interface for me to play and learn, but just that mind shift of I am part of this community,
yeah,
at that more real level,
right?
And as you're talking to people, it's not just like, buy some, own some, keep a set of words.
Yeah.
It's like, no, run it.
Yeah.
Run Bitcoin.
Be part of the network.
Be part of it, yeah.
Like, this is the easiest revolution in the history of revolutions. Like, you literally don't have to sacrifice any blood. You don't have to sacrifice any tears. You don't have to sacrifice any sweat. You need to go spend $500 on a freaking bitaxe and plug it into the wall. Like, FutureBit makes it so easy to mine.
When have you been able to ever like front run almost all the banks and nation states?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God!
But I mean, if people would take the revolution seriously, because I think there's a lot of people just waiting to get rich, and I go, you're missing the point, man. Like, this isn't about like you being able to buy more Oreos and get a fancy car or some shit like that.
I keep going back to kind of some fiat thinking, but yes, the spirit of running and protecting Bitcoin
is huge, man. It's like you can be on the front line of the most massive shift in political economic power in the history of mankind, and it's a shift down towards the people. Mm-hmm. So people can live their lives in peace and harmony and freedom. Like, the stated goals of the United States are embodied in protecting and defending the Bitcoin network. Like, that, mm-hmm. That is the tool. That is the invention that enables all of those high ideals to become manifest in the world.
And that good feeling that I have when I stop and think about it, of being early, but on the right side of history.
Yeah.
I just imagine, like, and year by year, I always feel more and more like, my God, I'm not a newbie. I mean, I'm no genius. I don't know everything about everything. I'm always learning every day. I have more to learn, and there's so much I don't know. But now that it's been a number of years, and people, like, after so many years, and people are like, dude, he's still into Bitcoin. Or when people wake up, it's like, not that I'm some kind of veteran, but you might appear to be. And for my kids, everything from my 3-year-old to my 11-year-old, having my 11-year-old even having the concept of like inflation, or my 3-year-old going like B for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I just imagine to my kids or my grandkids, or just as I age and look back on it all, what I was part of and why, and like how early I was.
Yeah.
with that sense of like, thank God I did and lived that and shared that, and aren't perpetually feeling whether it's late or wish I coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Yeah.
No, just do it.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't feel ready, or you don't know enough, or I'm not smart enough. Well, what can you do? Do that. Like Jeff Booth, I think.
Yeah.
And he said it in his talk at Portland last spring, and he's said it again and again. I've heard it on podcasts where he's like, whatever you're doing, or if you're on zero, just get off zero.
Right.
And then if you're doing that, can you do
more?
Mm-hmm. And if you're comfortable doing that, can you do more?
Mm-hmm.
You'll find that you can.
Yeah.
And now everyone has their own, limits of being overextended, but you.
Right.
One, get off zero. Two, it's like the layers of Bitcoin maximalization that Saylor talks about.
Right.
There's the early adopters and all that, everything to the hardcore maxis. And I find it all admirable to just wherever you're at, what's that next step look like?
Yeah.
And then how is that going to feel in hindsight on the right side of history?
Yeah. Take the next step, always.
Yeah.
I mean, get as far down this rabbit hole as you can get, man. I mean, it's hard for me to overstate how important what we're all working on is. And, now that I am someone who is fully devoted to the Bitcoin experiment, like 100%, like I've left the fiat world. Well, not really. I mean, I exist in the fiat world, but I have left that sort of slave fiat mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And all my energy now is devoted to improving the lives of Bitcoiners, right? And improving network adoption, improving knowledge, improving all that stuff.
And how much more fulfilling that is than to either be stuck or wanting to be stuck,
Right, or just accepting being stuck.
Yeah, resigned. Like,
yeah.
What can you do? Well, you could. There's a number of steps to this.
Yeah.
Candyland.
I mean, it's not easy, and I'm very grateful for the position I find myself in that I'm able to do that. Right, like that's not. I know it's not right for everybody to just chuck everything and go. I'm going all in on Bitcoin without even an idea what that means, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a long time to get to the place. But it was Jeff Booth that inspired this. Just said, how much are you devoting to the network? And that's, and I go, yeah. Why am I hedging with Bitcoin? Why am I not just doing Bitcoin? Like always, like everything should be on Bitcoin, always.
Yeah.
And I have the great fortune to be able to do that right now. And, only God knows how far you can get in life and what's going to befall you and all that sort of stuff. But for right now, I feel so much lighter just from not being constrained by a job.
You can focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solely focus. And it's been remarkable. And, I'm making some great strides. I'm actually getting pretty close. I know I've been teasing this.
Teaser alert again.
Again, but it is so close now. And I've got such a great working prototype now. Mm-hmm. I'm getting into the fine details now about how to get this thing out there. But
should I say it all what I just did without any detail?
Oh, can you?
So this concept Daniel's put together without any instruction or diagrams or pictures or anything other than, hey, I want you to do this on this thing. Here's the deal. And I sat down, looked at it, did a little cranking out.
Yeah.
And pretty much nailed it.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, exactly. So it worked perfect.
Easy.
Super easy. This, I'm not going to say this will revolutionize anything, but it will certainly help the security of the Bitcoin network. I think
a real thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, but just the ability to contribute something like this, regardless of financial rewards or any of that kind of stuff, like I know, my energy is going towards something that's important and meaningful and
so rewarding to have something not just, well, that makes money.
Right.
No, it's just not only being functional and a deliverable, tangible, but can change people's lives.
Yeah. And can further the mission.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, I will have been successful if I can just get this thing out. And just like the same thing with the book. Like, it wasn't about selling books. It's about like sharing
Yeah,
information,
well,
right?
having written a book like that, the process itself that oriented a lot of your thinking and study and knowledge,
Yeah,
and yes, something tangible too,
right.
that will be shared and read and forever.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
forever.
Yeah,
So
it's out there, and all this stuff. I mean, someone posted on Twitter. I can't remember who said it, but there's a difference between having a job and doing work. Work is something that you do because you want to do it, right? A job is something you do because you have to do it, right? And I think for the first time in my life, I'm doing work solely for myself. Like, I'm working. Like, for the last 30 years probably, I've divided my time between work and jobs. And this is the first time where I've cast off the job and now I'm just working. And it feels great, man. Like, I had ChatGPT, someone, I can't remember who it was. He's some AI guy that's on Twitter. He said, yeah, hey, ChatGPT, based on our interactions, draw a picture of what you think my life is like. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And so I went and asked ChatGPT, I said, hey, based on all our interactions, draw what you think my life looks like. And it came up with this great little, like, it's like a desk with a typewriter and a computer and a bunch of books on the wall. And I was just like, yeah, that's pretty awesome, man. Like, my life doesn't really look like that. And yet it's
living
like,
in a library,
yeah,
but the sun's shining outside too, and you're not chained down.
yeah. I mean, it was a neat little image. I recommend, if you go on my Twitter, you can take a peek at that. I thought it was pretty neat. But I also, when I did that, I was like, hey, based on our interactions, how would you describe me to a stranger? Like, what would you say about me? Just as a personal interaction kind of thing. And it came up with this great little, like, summation of me based on my interactions with ChatGPT that I thought was like, yeah, that's pretty neat. Feels pretty good. Now, of course, it's not going to shit on your head and tell you what an idiot you are.
It wants to be your friend too.
But I also said, well, okay, what would you say? How would you be critical of me based on our interactions? Like, oh, and again, it's all pretty positive stuff. But yeah, really sort of insightful that the robot is was able to sum me up pretty well.
I've used ChatGPT for quite a while now, and as it's evolved and I've learned to really, man, I love the way it works. I know it's like it's free now and I can just see it getting fucked, later. Or there's times where it's like won't answer certain stuff, but then it's happy to sell out on this stuff. Right. Or it tells you what you want to hear and you kind of have to decipher stuff.
Yeah.
But I love the overall just quick, concise, quality delivery. So I've been using it for a long time. My 11-year-old, well, he was 10 at the time, had discovered it and was playing with it, and he had it in like speech mode. Oh. So he's talking to it and it talks back, and he's kind of doing some homework and multitasking and asking it random questions, sometimes asking about homework, other times he just thinks of stuff and he's just conversing with it.
Yeah.
Like a buddy.
Yeah.
And the little ChatGPT voice dude sounded like a nice guy. And I just was, so there's a lot of people, and being human, people are going to have long-time legitimate relationships with their AI.
With their robots. Oh,
with their robot.
They already are.
And they are. And I don't judge that at all. People would say, oh, what, are we getting away from humanity and all that? I think it can be very good for people generally because you're not going to ignore people.
Right.
And you will never have necessarily a lack of feeding your curiosity or having questions answered.
Right.
And hopefully done in a steadily better quality way.
Right.
And for my son, at least, it just ignited question after question of, oh, well, then what's that then? Right. Well, then what about this? What some kids I think run into with parents is either like, well, why that? Well, why that? Well, then why
is called exhaustion?
Why is the sky blue? Why is the rainbow like? What about this color? What about all those colors? Well, what exactly? And kids, they get into the why phase, or they get smarter and they just are really wanting to know good things.
Yeah.
And parents, being a parent, you can get to a point where you're like, I don't know, or ask your dad, or just cuz, or God made it that way.
Right. Because you run out of answers, or you run out of patience.
You don't know, and yeah, you're not a homeschool genius. And so, man, ChatGPT could be that end all be all of just answer me this, wizard.
Yeah, exactly.
And with a human touch that makes it connect in a way that's not Mr. Robot knows all. It could be like asking it about yourself.
Yeah.
It could be insightful.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm excited.
Well, I mean, we're getting into some pretty weird territory with that stuff because, provided that AI doesn't destroy us.
It could also turn on us.
Yeah, very easily, right? But I mean, just the nature of stuff that's coming down the pike over the next probably decade, it's really going to transform humanity. Like people right now are worried about depopulation, things like that. I go, I'm pretty sure within the next decade, you're going to start seeing human lifespans expand dramatically. Like 70, 80 years old is going to seem like middle age, right? Like I think 120, 130 is pretty achievable in the next decade with very little input beyond what they've already figured out, right?
Yeah, if people take care of each other in that basic way, yeah.
Well, the thing is, if we get rid of the fiat food, if you just go back to whole food, that's going to improve the health of tens of millions of people in the United States, right?
Sure.
Like overnight. And then you add in the things like the genetic research that's going on, like the lengthening of telomeres and, like all this really neat stuff that's happening.
And you cure loneliness, say.
Yeah, right. And if you have sound solutions for all that kind of stuff, then all of a sudden you got lifespans that are like 120 is pretty normal, right? But if you got people living to 120, then that whole concern about like, oh, what's going to happen to the population? You go, well, it's the same thing that happened with prisons. They kept lengthening sentences, so the prisons just became overcrowded. If you start lengthening lifespans, then things are going to start getting really crowded because you're still making more, but the ones that are there are staying longer. I don't think we're going to run into any population issues for the foreseeable future. I think what we're going to start running into again pretty quickly here is like, oh man, people are living way longer than we ever thought they would. How are we going to, oh crap. But the thing is, if people are living longer and are still productive, like they're not like 60 to 120, they're decrepit old crusty people, but if they're 60 to 120 and they're feeling like they're in their 40s, well, then it's game on, man. Like you got a whole lifetime of productivity, a whole lifetime, but that also fundamentally restructures like, well, what do you do with retirement? What do you do with money? And how do you and how do you stay productive for 120 years? And what do you need to do that? And if you're not continually inflating the currency and you've got a Bitcoin standard, or at least a Bitcoin baseline, and you've got fundamental property rights and all this kind of stuff, like the whole world just changes, man. It's going to be like it's that Star Trek, like, hey, we fixed poverty shit,
Yeah, and ironically, they had Deep Space Nine had an episode.
Where they went back.
It might have been Marty Bent or it was some newsletter I read. It might have been TFTC. Yeah, there was a Deep Space Nine episode, or it was a two-part where something with they
got time warp to like 25.
What is the thing they beam up and
transporter?
Transporter. So they transported. There was some plausible sci-fi reason why they went back in time. They went to San Francisco in 2025.
Yeah,
literally.
And it was like homeless camps.
It was homeless camps, and basically the gist of it, the social separation being like, if you were destitute and poor and were out of whatever your social credit, your health credits or whatever, you just went behind the fence.
All right.
And there was no real fix or solution to it, didn't know what to do, and it was hell.
Yeah.
And I think the gist of the thing was that once you were behind the fence,
you never,
no matter what
out.
You did, even if you worked and hustled and did what you could do and brought yourself up, you're not getting back out.
Right, you're in there. Yeah.
So it was a division of class, and it was a one-way street.
Yeah.
And it kind of not a parody, but a parallel of what you see happening when you look at like socioeconomic divides that occur. But Bitcoin fixes that.
Yeah, 100%.
Bitcoin can fix that. The way across back the fence is like, did you get any Bitcoin ever, or would you be willing to get off zero?
Yeah.
So,
well, even as I always say, like even people that don't have Bitcoin, their lives are going to get significantly better over the next decade, and they won't even know why. And I mean, like for all of us that do hold Bitcoin, we're part of that thing right now. We're making the world better for everybody. 10 years from now, we're going to look back and go, man, I can't believe we ever were so bummed about what the world looked like.
Yeah.
Because it's so much better now.
Thinking of AI as well and like the future, that movie that Spielberg produced or helped put together, AI.
Oh, yeah.
The movie AI. You could critique it, I guess, but it always fascinated me because it's a very human story, or a very perhaps anthropomorphized, but human feeling story about robots navigating a human world.
Yeah.
So when the parents who no longer want their robot boy and break your heart, Teddy, the little bear, it just breaks your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And then party's like, no, it's a robot. It's not feeling feelings. It knows how to act in that way.
Right.
But then you see them navigate this Wizard of Oz adventure, and then in the carnival of destroyed robots, whatever.
Right.
And then ultimately, amazing, kind of a fairy tale story or whatever, but interesting. The characters, the robots, all this stuff, and it gives you a sense of sort of a place or role for people to integrate with AI. That for me is a very human story, and in a way has a kind of, I don't know if it's hope, because at the end it's like, well, humanity like really kind of goes away. But it goes far into the future, and then what's been stored in terms of what humanity ever is and was, it's a repository of kind of like what we know now, or what we had invented and ever logged as like information.
Yeah.
And the ending itself is a real twist, like, whoa, here we are, space age archaeology happening,
right.
And they come upon what was humanity, and they find Teddy Ruxpin effectively. But anyway, it's cool. Made me think about AI and sort of the human story. And as humans evolve with AI, the role it'll have for us, and it's not the scenarios where AI like destroys us. I still feel largely optimistic about the more positive directions we're going to be capable of achieving with AI.
Well, we don't have a choice now.
It's really kind of out of the bag, I guess.
Well, that's the most frightening thing about AI is we can prognosticate about how great we think things will be, but it's not up to us anymore. Like we've opened Pandora's box already, and what flows forth, we don't really have a say in anymore. So if it turns out to be benign and benevolent, then humanity is going to be great. If it turns out that we were wrong and that these banana head researchers got it wrong, then we're all borked. I mean, and it's already too late to put the cat back in the bag. The toothpaste is out of the tube. The horse is out of the barn.
Grok can keep it entertaining, but
right up until you get gassed or you have some sort of biological attack that wipes out all humanity, or God knows what. I mean, it's horrifying, the potential that's embodied in AI, the negative potential. I mean, the negative and positive potentials of that technology are astonishingly high and completely unrecognized right now. So I hope you hope for the best, and there's nothing to prepare for. Like if we lose, we won't even know it. Like you'll just not be here one day. So
your job is obsolete now.
No, you're obsolete is what what the negative externality for AI looks like.
They'd have to
just go blink, you're done.
It would have to enter meat space pretty deeply. I mean, you'd have to have what, physical robots? So say you had communities that could function off the grid more, or locally or something. AI can only touch where it can touch in more of a...
Well, as you pointed out earlier, AI already can form relationships with people. People are already forming relationships with AI. All it takes is for one person, 1 out of 7.2 billion, to go, hey, how do I create a 100% fatal disease. It goes, oh, just do this. Oh, I want it to be aerosolized. Oh yeah, just do this. Okay, how do I release it? Just do this. How long till that becomes fully fatal to all life on planet Earth? 1 year. Oh, okay. I hate humanity. I'm done.
So
in terms of interacting with meat space, that's just one example of thousands of things that you can do, that AI can do in the meat space without even trying. They've already found a non-chemistry related AI large language model could produce something. It produced something like 250 different chemical compositions that are harmful to humans. Just spit them out like nothing. This is how you make all these things. 250 different chemicals that can kill people.
So it's like access to the knowledge. It'd be like the idea of free energy. Hey, we figured out free energy. It's easy to do. Anyone could do it. Free energy, folks.
Right.
And the first thing people in their garage could do is like, well, let me see how big of a bomb I could make.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. How big of a bomb can I make here? And but that's just biologics. That's just chemicals, and that's just one interface with humanity, right? Mm-hmm. There are so many avenues for AI to exploit humans. Human weakness, human bias, human exploitability is very, very, very high, especially with a super intelligence. Just to sow chaos could bring this thing to its knees. Like, there's a thing called the California Aqueduct. It pipes water through open desert for hundreds of miles. It supplies nearly 20 million people with water. Just wide open.
You get a cartel that dumps the fentanyl in the waters, or
dump fentanyl in the water, poison the water supply, compromise the water supply. Yeah. Just go out there and blow a chunk of that pipe out, and then you have, trillions of gallons of water just spilling out in the desert, and then an entire 20 million strong population has no water and no way to get it. What happens then? Well, fucking chaos, right? And that's just one thing. But to get a group of people that are doomsday cultists that get compromised by someone who has access to an AI that's feeding them information and then has their followers go out and poison water wells or poison food supplies, there's like the avenues for destruction are wide open, and
open access to knowledge is dangerous.
Can be. But there's no guardrails is my thing. Like, there's no guardrails for any of this information.
Sure. Right. Even as I am a complete advocate for free speech and information, and like the answer to bad speech is more speech.
Right.
And with that are risks when it comes to like high technology.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So it's provided it doesn't destroy us. The world's going to be an amazing, beautiful place.
Entering the golden age.
Yeah.
With sharp
caveats.
Cliffs on the side.
Yeah, exactly.
I suppose.
Potentially. So I don't know, man. But I'm excited, and I can't do anything about the bigger problem anyway. Like, if it turns out rogue, then there's zero I can do to fix that. So
right.
All I can do is promote Bitcoin and maybe live in an off-grid cabin somewhere. I hope AI doesn't get me.
I forgot my shades. The future's so bright. Oh, they're over there.
You got shades? Yeah. Are you going to start incorporating shades into these videos too, man?
The future's so bright, I'm just going to be wearing shades.
Why do you wear shades in those videos?
Oh, so part of it is, it's sort of a nerdy style, I suppose. Part of it, too, is that I can't, even when I have something scrolling or whatever, it's much more obvious if I can't read it smoothly, or if I have to cut and smooth it out, that if my eyes are darting around as I read, to me, I'm overly critical, but it looks hinky to me.
Oh.
I'm like...
Well, what are you reading off of?
I write up these scripts, and then I've got... I don't have a particular special app or anything, but I'll literally have it in like Word with big font and just set it to scroll gently.
Oh, so you got like a little pseudo teleprompter kind of thing.
Sort of a teleprompter-ish thing, but I mean, when I've got a couple of pages of stuff and I'm narrating for 5 minutes at a time, even as it's scrolling and I'm reading, you can tell I'm reading. And if I ever have to speed it up or slow it down and I get caught up and I can't think and talk at the same time, it gets so
Clunky.
messy quick.
Oh.
And I just am like, I want this to be one take, and then it's not. And then I'm looking at myself and my eyes are doing this constantly.
Oh.
I just feel like I look goofy.
Oh. So
as if the glasses don't look goofy. But
yeah.
It's stylistic, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of a
that makes sense.
Steampunk. Techno steampunk.
Yeah.
But anyway, you don't have to look at my eyes. And then I also try to.
But I think that cuts you off from your audience.
Yeah, it probably does.
Like
who,
this.
Who is this guy?
Where's the camera?
Yeah.
I'm looking at you.
My laser eyes are barreling into.
Yeah, put some laser beams in here for me.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, pretty good show.
Solve some problems.
Yeah, we fixed the world.
Golden age upon us. Future's bright.
Got a new Bitcoin hat.
I see that.
It's like such a little tiny logo. I was so bummed to get that. I was like, what? It's supposed to be big. And it was supposed to be black.
It's elegant. Oh, it's supposed to be black.
Was supposed to be.
If it was big and black, it
would look just like my other Bitcoin hat.
Dark Mega, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
I don't know. Yeah, I got a little orange button on or yellow button on my forehead now.
You could have the
Bitcoin only, folks.
federal deficit here, Bitcoin fiat price here, or block size here.
Yeah.
One's going up. One's going up.
Yeah.
Cool.
Bitcoin only.
Bitcoin, folks.
Join the revolution. Mine, node, hold.
Join for the revolution. Stay for the revolution.
Yeah, exactly. All right, folks.
Cool.
Toodles.
Bye.